Everybody, thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about The Strangers Pray at Night. And I am once again happy to have my friend Rashad Reviews here in this video. I actually told him to check this movie out, not knowing if he had seen the first one, but either way I told him to check it out because I don't really feel like you need to have seen the first one to have seen this movie. There's only subtle moments that you catch on if you have seen the first film, but it's usually more like the killers are doing something that they did in the first film, so it almost feels like a callback. And in a lot of ways this film almost feels like a soft reboot, just with new characters, even though it is a continuation, but it in no way really ties into that first film. So we're going to hear from Rashad in just a little bit, but let's go ahead and get into my thoughts on The Strangers 2, or just as it's called, The Strangers Pray at Night. It was over 10 years, or about 10 years since the first one came out, and if you guys saw my review that I did for the first Strangers that came out last Halloween around that time, yeah, I talked about the fact that I really thoroughly enjoyed that movie, and even though there are things that I had my criticisms about, and there are elements about the film that I think make it rather generic in the horror genre, I think that first film just had a great sense of atmosphere, and it was very creepy and eerie. And for a period of time, I don't know if I even mentioned this in my review for the first one, but for a period of time, this was the movie, or the first one was the movie, that I would kind of call the scariest movie I had ever seen, mainly because I just really enjoyed and I was really creeped out by the way that they handled the whole home invasion thing. And in that movie, when the killers are asked why they're doing what they're doing, their very simple response was just, because you were home. And there's nothing more creepy to me than the idea of somebody just kind of seeing that you're home and wanting to torment you, take your life, kill somebody that you love. And there are crazy psychopathic people like that in this world. And so this movie, similar to the first one, starts with the whole based on a true story thing. And for a while I thought the first movie was based on a true story, but it's actually based around multiple stories, both of these films. So it's not based on a true story. You know, I know it's kind of a creepy thing to add to the beginning of movies that definitely pulls people in a lot of times, but the movie itself and the first one were just based on a culmination of different stories that had happened in different places, of different home invasion situations, but was not specifically about these three specific killers. And speaking of the killers, we're once again reintroduced to the killers from the first films, though this time they're played by different actors. You have the man in the mask, which I always kind of thought was a weak name for this killer, as well as Dollface and the pinup girl. So yeah, what I could say is I enjoyed seeing their imagery of these three masked killers once again. And yeah, like I said, I think the first film, though it has some generic elements, I think it is a really creepy and eerie film that definitely is one of the creepier films in the home invasion genre. With this one, I think that it had more of like an 80s, 90s kind of vibe to it, as far as like kind of trying to be one of those older slashers, kind of like a callback, while also being a very modern slasher. But what I can say about the film after having watched it is I found it to be fairly disappointing. It's by no means a bad film. I think it's visually really well done. I think the cinematography and the performances and just the way that the film is directed is really well done. It tells a cohesive story from beginning to end, and it was an entertaining, engaging film. And I should also mention that I had a couple shots of tequila, so I was kind of into it as one of those movies where you and the person you're with can kind of like poke fun at certain moments and kind of talk to the screen a couple times. One of those horror films. But as a movie on its own, if I'm going to really critique it as far as its writing and its characters, I have to be honest when I say that I just really wasn't crazy about the characters in this film. There were so many moments where I just was so annoyed with the characters, or I just felt like they were making incredibly poor choices. And yeah, that's just kind of how I felt throughout the course of the film. And when people died and when things happened to them, I really couldn't have cared less. Across the course of the film, I never really cared if something was going to happen to our main characters. And I think that's kind of one of the weakest points of this film. Now, you may be saying, hey, this is a slasher film, the main characters don't matter, and you're right. But if that's usually the case, then the body count and the kills would kind of be the show of the movie, kind of be the standout moments, or the killers would be kind of the heroes in a way. You know, when you watch the Friday the 13th films, the Nightmare on Elm Street, the Chucky franchise, what you really care about are these slashers, and you don't really care too much about the random new characters that are brought in. Maybe there's a character or two in each of those films that you'll kind of latch onto. But in this film, though there were elements I enjoyed about certain characters, I never really found myself invested in those characters, and you don't really ever get enough time with the actual strangers to care for them as killers either. So yeah, watching this movie, I can say that there were elements about the film that I can definitely praise, like the performances that were very believable, and the cinematography, which was, I think, without a doubt the best part of the movie. But outside of that, I think that the story and the characters and the overall film on its own kind of just felt generic. There were some nice callbacks in this film to some other horror films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's like a great homage scene of that at the very end of the movie, and there's a couple moments like that that you can kind of pick out throughout the course of the film. But beyond that, I just found this film to just be okay. It's not a bad movie, but it's not a great movie. It wasn't a movie that I'm kind of clamoring to watch again, whereas with the first one, even though there are generic elements about that film, it's a film that got a reaction out of me the first few times that I watched it, actually. And it's a film that every time I've shown it to somebody for the first time, they're kind of creeped out. It's an eerie horror film that I think does really good at making you feel kind of uncomfortable. And with this one, it just kind of felt very run-of-the-mill, kind of generic. You saw where it was going, and you weren't really rooting for the characters throughout the course of the film, or at least that was me. So yeah, now that we've kind of talked a little bit about my thoughts, what I should say about the setup of this film is that we have a new family in this film, you know, that is kind of going on some trip. We find out there's some kind of turmoil going on. Our main character, Kinsey, she's kind of being sent off to boarding school. So right at the very beginning of the movie, we kind of have this issue between the parents and the daughter. She's kind of the edgy teenage girl who wants to kind of sneak away from the family to smoke a cigarette, and she's the main character, and I was rooting for her at certain times, but she was rather annoying at a lot of times. She was played by Bailee Madison, and I think that she's a good actress, but I think that she kind of just had one of those baby faces, so when she was having these moments that kind of come across like tantrums, that's all I could think, was that it was like tantrums, that she was kind of an annoying teenage character that was kind of edgy and wanted to go smoke cigarettes, and I never really fully felt connected to her character, and I think it has more to do with the writing than it does the actual performance, because like I said, all of the performances in this film are pretty solid. And then you have the mom, dad, and son in this film that are played by Christina Hendricks, Martin Henderson, and Lewis Pullman, and yeah, everybody gives a good performance. You know, they're going off to this trailer park to go visit their aunt and uncle, and they're gonna go stay there for a little bit. They do set up at the beginning of the film that people leave this trailer park during this time of the year, so it's kind of empty. The only people that are there are this aunt and uncle, because they run the trailer park. And so they end up coming, this family, they're gonna stay in one of the trailers there, and they end up finding out that the aunt and uncle were killed. So we see that happen at the beginning of the film. And now they're here trapped with these strangers on this abandoned trailer park, trailer home kind of lot. And that's essentially our movie. And by the end of the film, I just kind of didn't care. You know, I think that the movie has some big positives, but I wasn't really crazy about it on an overall level. Now, I've rambled way longer than I thought, looking at the time of how long this has been filming, and I totally meant to pass it off to Rashad at this point. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll get back to my thoughts afterwards.
Alright, Perez, what's the deal? Pickles, is everything kosher? So I'm filming this a little late at night, and I don't want to disturb my neighbors, so I'm going to talk a little low here. Hopefully you can hear me. And it's funny as I say that an airplane just flew by. The YouTube gods are looking down on me. Alright, so our tit for tat saga continues. This time you got me watching Strangers. I almost said Birds of Prey. What's it called? Night of Prey, or The Strangers Part 2. And you did inform me that I did not have to watch the first one to watch this one, but I almost feel like I have to now because I was confused on some things. So this is supposed to be like a slasher type film, slasher horror movie. Going into a movie like this, I was expecting a high body count. I was expecting a fun popcorn horror slasher movie like I'm accustomed to. And I really didn't get that with this movie. That's not to say I really didn't like it. I thought it was okay. All right, if I could be real, I thought the movie was just okay. It was almost no fun, but the biggest compliments I can give this movie was some of the shots. I thought the cinematography was really good. There were some shots that really worked for me, especially the part with the flaming truck that was coming after the girl. It kind of put me in the mind of Christine. This movie was almost like a gumbo of a lot of horror movies that I've seen. Like, I saw Christine in here. I saw Chainsaw Massacre in here. I saw Us. There was quite a few of them, you know, little sprinkles of Friday the 13th in there. The movie was not bad, but I'm not going to say it's something special where I'm going to rush to see it again. It was just okay for me. The biggest problem that I have with this movie are the main characters, the family. I did not like them. They was almost as annoying as the family in Us. I didn't like them either. I thought the father was just stupid as hell. I don't know how the hell he pulled that chick. I had to look her up too. Oh, she's such a MILF. Oh my God, Perez. Oh my God. She is such a MILF. I had to look her up. Her name is Christina Hendricks. I think I'm saying that right. Oh, if she watches this, baby, I'm available. She was finer than frog hair, sweeter than bear meat. It was almost like they took Jessica Rabbit and put clothes on her, a lot of clothes on her. I'm like, no, let us see what God blessed you with. I wanted to see the shape. I mean, you can still see the shape and the figure kind of through the clothes, but I wanted more. I'm like, damn, she is fucking gorgeous. She is the definition of a MILF. And so sadly, she was the first one to go. And after that, I kind of checked out a little bit. They took my favorite character in the movie and they killed her, okay? And the daughter, the main girl, was annoying as shit. I did not like her at all. I was actually rooting for her to get killed. I didn't like anybody in this movie. There was nobody that I could really connect with. And I know what you're probably saying. Well, with slasher movies, it's not really about the characters. And you're right, it's not. But here's my thing. With these kind of movies, either you have to have a high body count or you have to like the main characters in the movie. All right, so for example, Nightmare on Elm Street, not a big body count. I'm talking about the original. But you like Nancy, you like Glenn, you rooted for the main characters to win. All right, they had some likable characters in Nightmare on Elm Street, but the body count was low. But then you take Friday the 13th, very bland, boring, generic characters that are very expendable. You don't care about them. But because you like Jason, and Jason gave you the kills and the blood spills and all that shit, you dug it, all right? So you see what I'm saying? And this movie just could not find that balance. You had unlikable characters, and then you had unlikable killers. I didn't even like these killers. I didn't understand what they were about. I didn't understand what they were doing, why they were doing what they were doing. It's this trailer park, and I guess they killed everybody in the trailer park, so that's why they were like the only ones there. I didn't get it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't understand their motivations, and by the time the movie was going off, I did not care to know their motivations. I didn't really care. I guess the father, the guy, I thought it was cool the way he was dragging that axe. For some reason, when I hear an axe dragging through concrete like that, it's almost like the equivalent of nails going down a chalkboard. It just makes you say, you know, kind of took me back to Breaking Bad with the twins and the one with the axe, you know what I mean? So not to take much more time, I know Perez has to get back to the rest of this video, but to me, I thought this movie was very mediocre. I think, you know, some decent directing, but the cinematography is by far the best compliment I can give this movie, and I think the score was pretty good. I thought it had a retro 80s slasher score to it, and they threw some 80s music in there whenever the killers showed up. I don't know what the connection is with 80s music and the killers. I really don't care. But yeah, very average movie. I'm going to give this a C-. You know, not the worst thing I've ever seen, but nothing that I'm going to rush to see again. So there you have it, my 2 cents on The Stangers Part 2. So anyways, Perez, thank you once again for having me in this video. Next, I have you watching Warrior. So check out my channel as well, Rashad G Reviews. Perez comes on there also, and I have him watch movies that I pick out for him that he normally would not watch. But lately, the stuff I've been picking out for him, he has been watching and just been going back and rewatching them again, and we have a good time talking about these movies. So I love doing these videos, bro. So anyways, yeah, y'all, that's all I got. Perez, the floor is yours. What you got, homie?
A big thanks to Rashad for being here in this video. Always a pleasure, my friend. And yeah, what I could definitely say is we pretty much kind of have a similar outlook on this movie. The cinematography was really great. And yeah, by the end of the movie, I just didn't really care for the characters. The body count and the kills weren't really anything to kind of save the movie for me. And though it had good elements and it was well made, I just wasn't crazy about it. You brought up the cinematography as well. And one moment that I want to kind of praise as like a moment that really kind of stands out for what I enjoyed about the cinematography in this film were the way that certain scenes were shot. And a specific one that kind of comes to mind is that there's a scene where our main character Kenzie is running away from some strangers, and she's kind of blurry in the background, but it's kind of focused on her, and she's slowly walking towards the screen or running towards the screen, and it isn't until she gets right in front of the camera that she ends up running into a fence. And the way that they chose to film it, where the fence was actually right there in front of the camera the whole time, but it was focused mainly on her, and once she runs into the fence, that's when the camera actually focuses in on the fence, and we as an audience member actually see the the fence for the first time. So it's almost like the audience and Kinsey were running into the fence at the exact same time, and I really thoroughly enjoyed the cinematography in that moment. I think that that's definitely one of those moments that I can definitely praise about this movie and the way it was shot. There's some clever shots, it's well directed, and it's well acted. It's just the characters that never really had me rooting for any of them, and by the end of the movie I just thought, I probably won't watch that again, but yeah, you know, I enjoyed it for what it is. I think it's a run-of-the-mill horror film that has its positives, but isn't really something I'm clamoring to watch again. So what do you guys think about The Strangers 2, Strangers Pray at Night? I definitely want to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Hit that like button if you guys enjoyed this video, and as usual, you can find a link to both Rashad and I's channel down below in the description box. A big thanks to him for being here in this video. Also, he mentioned in his portion of the review that I was going to be over on his channel for a review very, very soon, and that review is actually already up, and we already got tons of reviews over on his channel if you guys are interested. So definitely go check out Rashad's channel, go check out the collabs we've done over there, and definitely subscribe to his channel and my channel for more videos, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.